Hey, hi everybody. Welcome to Life After Mental Illness. I'm Bill MacPhee, your recovery expert, and recovery is when you wouldn't want to be anyone else other than who you are today. Well, we just got finished through our series on schizophrenia and the positive and negative symptoms. We talked about the positive symptoms: hallucinations, hearing voices, being paranoid, illusions, hallucinations, delusions. And then we talked about the negative symptoms: lack of joy, lack of energy, emotional bluntness, emotional blandness, a little bit about depression. And then we had some videos, some interviews. We interviewed Ray. We did a shot while I was speaking out in New Brunswick. And who else did I interview? I interviewed Greg Zed. So you can go look back at some of those vlogs if you missed them. They're very interesting if you want to watch them. But moving forward, we're going to talk about bipolar illness. and bipolar illness has, there's 5 different types of bipolar. The real known ones are really bipolar 1 and bipolar 2, but there's other bipolar that are very more subtle, very hard, not easy to recognize, and you really got to know your stuff to be able to distinguish them. So we may mention them, and then we may focus on bipolar 1 and bipolar 2. So we'll see how that goes. However, in this vlog, before we get into bipolar illness, I want to talk to you about psychiatry in general and mental illness in general. With mental illness, there's a fine line between different illnesses. Everybody's an individual, you have to remember, and everybody will have different symptoms. Everybody will have a different combination of symptoms. And that's why there's even an illness known as schizoaffective disorder. And schizoaffective disorder basically means a little bit of schizophrenia and a little bit of bipolar. And, but in general with psychiatry, this is why I want to talk to you a little bit about that so you kind of understand that. Because people with mental illness, we've all probably heard that a lot of times people with mental illness, their diagnosis may change over the years and that. And I want to explain a little bit. And that has basically to do with a fine line between mental illnesses. Now, here's how it plays out. The psychiatrist's role is to basically find a diagnosis for you and to treat you on the right medication. He may not know the diagnosis, but he will know symptoms and the medication to help those symptoms. Now, you have to realize that psychiatry is a very young field. It's a young field, and there's been, it is very hard to get facts and research and everything like that. But the more important than that is that really people who see a psychiatrist don't get to see them very much. So you may have a psychiatrist appointment, say for once a month for 20 minutes. And so you got to really understand that when you see a psychiatrist, they really don't know you long enough or know you good enough to really understand what's happening. And especially the person who is going in to see a psychiatrist doesn't understand what they're going through. And so therefore a relationship may be very, very difficult. And I hear this all the time, is that, parents, there's this confidentiality, right? Confidentiality which is kind of BS. Basically, the confidentiality is just covering people's asses so they don't get sued and everything like that. I got to tell you, though, that it's very important that people and parents and families say, oh, I can't talk to the psychiatrist, or the psychiatrist won't see me with my son or daughter and everything, or there may be some confidentiality issues. And that's true, but there's a way around that. And the way around that is by writing out, and I'm not going to say writing out, I'm going to say typing out very neatly, double spaced, all the symptoms that your loved one is going through. Because I'll tell you what happens. What happens is that Johnny has a psychiatry appointment, and he's waiting weeks, and the family members are waiting. Oh, they're getting Johnny. You get another 2 weeks. You got your psychiatrist, your doctor's appointment, and what happens is the parents are saying, Johnny, tell them this. Tell your doctor this, that you're doing that. And Johnny, tell your doctor that you're paranoid. And Johnny, tell your doctor that you're not sleeping properly. And Johnny, tell the doctor you're pacing or you have this side effect. And then the day comes and Johnny goes into the office and he has his appointment with the doctor. And the doctor says, so John, how's it going? How are you today? Oh, pretty good, doctor. Not too much. Everything's okay. I'm managing. Yeah. Things are fine. In the meantime, the parents are saying, oh, I hope Johnny tells them this and tells them that. So, and that happens all the time. And a doctor only really gets to see a person not very long. So that's like on an outpatient. So really what you need to do, parents and support and caregivers, is to type a letter and double space it and make it neat and just list all the symptoms, all what's happening, and the doctor will read that, and he'll find out, he'll appreciate that. He's not breaking any confidentiality rules because he's not talking to you, but he's taking things in from you. And he'll see Johnny and he'll say, oh, okay, and then he can address certain things that are in the letter. And that's so important because then it gives the doctor an idea. Because really the goal of the doctor is not to hear all about the delusions and about how my dad is Satan and how the neighbors are looking at me all the time and how I'm hearing voices and then I can read people's mind. They don't care about that. They're looking at trying to find a medication to get those positive symptoms under control, to get them out. So it's very helpful if you give a letter or something. You're not breaking any confidentiality. The doctor isn't, and he will appreciate the input. Okay, so that's very important. Now, I just want to tell a little bit about this too as well in today's day and age. In today's day and age, people are put into the hospital and they get out very soon. And a lot of times if somebody is on a medication and they get into a psychiatric ward, a lot of times what happens is that they'll try to detox them. They'll try to wean them off medication and get a baseline. Okay, so but the problem with that in a lot of cases is that the person is not in the hospital long enough to get to that zero baseline, to get observed, and to know that. So really with this and saying is that we have things going against us. The doctor doesn't know the patient very well. The patient doesn't know how to express himself to the psychiatrist. If they're in the hospital before they get to a zero baseline where they can be observed, a lot of times they're out of they're discharged from the hospital. So these things are happening. So parents and caregivers can be very, very important in doing that. And even when, say, somebody's in crisis and they go to the emergency ward, where you're taking your loved one to the emergency ward, take the time before you go to the emergency ward to write that letter, to type it out in double space, make it as neat as possible, and say what's going on. Because I know firsthand, when I showed up in emergency many times, I could fake it and say, oh, I'm fine. And doctors see this. And usually you get interns who are in the emergency ward who don't know about psychiatry. And they're not going to admit somebody if they seem there's no reason to admit them. But it's a game we can play where, people with mental illness, we have a mental illness. We're not stupid. We're not dumb. We just have a mental illness where our mind is playing tricks on us. So anyways, I just wanted to give you a little of those pointers about psychiatrist and what goes on, and there's none of this lying on the couch psychoanalyzing or whatever. The doctor's trying to find a good diagnosis for you, as much information as possible, so they can try to find out what medication that they need that might help bring them back into reality. And that's the goal. We got to get back into reality. Okay, so coming up next, we're gonna talk a little bit in the next vlog. We're gonna get into bipolar, and I'll probably talk a little bit about the five areas of bipolar, and then we'll take them individually as we go on. So, okay, everybody, remember there is life after mental illness, and recovery is when you wouldn't want to be anyone else other than who you are today. Have a great night, everybody. Bye bye for now. Hi, thank you for watching. Make sure to like, comment, and subscribe, and follow me on Facebook and Twitter.